Okay, let's talk The Last of Us Part 3. Part 2, Part 3, whatever. So, Neil Druckmann has pretty much come out and stated that he doesn't believe The Last of Us Part 3 will happen. He just thinks it's very unlikely. Here's what's officially said. I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of The Last of Us. This could be it. Which is interesting. He says he's very clear this could be it. Yeah, could be. But ultimately, you know, I think it boils down to multiple things. Now, this video is going to be merely speculation, merely what I think, merely what I think's going to happen. Speculation. So if you're not interested in that, I guess click off. It's up to you. But if you're interested to hear what I think and how likely I think The Last of Us Part 3 happening is, stick around. So starting with the first thing, Neil Druckmann saying what he said. Let's run through multiple scenarios. Neil Druckmann's not working on The Last of Us Part 3. He's not going to make The Last of Us Part 3. Last of Us Part 3 is not going to be created by Neil Druckmann. He worked on The Last of Us Part 1. He's stated many a times in the past he's not interested in working on sequels. He doesn't like doing sequels. He has no confidence with sequels. He was only the co-writer on The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 only happened because someone else came up and proposed an idea. Last of Us Part 3 is in the hands of a third party. We need someone else from the outside to come in and create a story because Neil Druckmann's not going to do it himself, especially seeing as he's working on Intergalactic right now. He's not going to do it. So immediately we're ruling Neil Druckmann out immediately. Now, there are two things that could be happening. There's another thing that could be happening, and it's two things. They are working on The Last of Us Part 3, and Neil Druckmann doesn't know about it, which, come on. He's working at Naughty Dog right now on Intergalactic. He's works with everyone on The Last of Us. He created The Last of Us. Like, he would know if there was a Last of Us Part 3 happening. So that one I mainly just added because I felt like it, but that one most likely bullshit. I don't believe that's the reason why he's stating what he's stating. If it was happening, yeah, he knows, he would know if there's a Last of Us Part 3. Then we go into thing number 2, which is also unlikely, but I think more likely than what I just said, which is he is working on the Last of Us Part 3, and someone is working on it, and someone has written a story, and he is co-writing it. Now, I still think it's very unlikely, seeing as he's really hardcore into Intergalactic right now, and he wouldn't really have the time to co-write a game, but realistically, he could just be saying this to fuck with people. You know what I mean? He could just be like, hey, there's a Last of Us Part 3 happening, but secretly there is. But that's, again, merely speculation, you know? And I honestly believe if The Last of Us Part 3 was happening, PlayStation wouldn't want him to even say anything like this. And if it was happening, I don't think he would say anything. You know what I mean? I think if it was truly happening, he wouldn't even say it's not happening. You know what I mean? He would simply just not say anything. I'm very confident in that. Now, let's go on to more things that kind of stack against Last of Us Part 3. So now we know that we rely on someone else from the outside to come in and work on The Last of Us Part 3 or make a story or propose a story, because Neil Druckmann himself is not going to do it. So what are we looking at now? We have to have a third party come out and have a story for The Last of Us Part 3. Now, we can make the argument, yeah, there's probably plenty of people with stories or ideas for The Last of Us Part 3 and a continuation of this story, you know, of the story of Ellie and all those characters. But the simple fact of the matter is, and this is something I mentioned, you know, a little while ago, is The Last of Us Part 3, The Last of Us is a very fragile franchise. Last of Us Part 3 is a very important game. You know what I mean? It's very important to not just Naughty Dog, but PlayStation. You know what I mean? It's their biggest franchise. You know, it's one of their biggest sellers, meaning they can't fuck it up. If they do decide to do it, they can't mess it up. They can't fuck it up. Because if they do, then they ruin everything. You know, they ruin the entire franchise. They ruin people's trust. You know what I mean? Like, they made some really bad creative choices with The Last of Us Part 2, and it almost ruined the fucking franchise for a lot of people. Like, it practically ruined the franchise for me. You know what I mean? That game did not hit, but, you know, whatever. They know how fragile this franchise is and how fragile the fans are. You know, so when someone proposes a story, even if the story's good, they're not looking for good. They're not looking for great. They're looking for masterpiece. They're looking for monolith. They're looking for the greatest story ever told, which might sound like an exaggeration, but really, if Naughty Dog and PlayStation hear a pitch for the game and it's good, they're not going to greenlight it because they don't want good. They want masterpiece. You know, they're not going to let anything by that's not a downright masterpiece. They're just not. It's not going to happen. Meaning, what that ultimately means, in the easiest term I can say, is the bar's really high. So if you want to propose a story for The Last of Us Part 3, your bar has to be high. You know what I mean? Like, the bar will be high, very high. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, another reason why it's not being worked on, you know, because, you know, people have probably come to them every day with good stories or even great stories, but great isn't masterpiece. They want something that'll blow their socks off. And if you're not going to give them something that's going to blow their socks off, they're not going to be interested in continuing Ellie's story in The Last of Us Part 3. And that's another reason why I don't think The Last of Us Part 3 will happen. But now we go on to what I think is actually going to happen. So if you didn't know, Daniel RPK has recently come out with a rumor. And now he's somewhat of a reliable leaker. He pretty much leaks a lot of movies. He's a big movie guy. That's mainly what he does. Let me just look for the tweet quickly because I don't know where the fuck I bookmarked it. But he's mainly Daniel RPK. Let's just go into his background a little bit. He's found it. He's mostly a movie leaker, so he leaks a lot of movie stuff, and he's been somewhat right. He's credited with some leaks, but then the credibility of those leaks were really like dodgy because it's been shown in the past he's leaked a couple things, and then it turned out someone had leaked it before him, and they were the actual real creditors of that leak. And then there was most times where he's just straight wrong. So he's a really, it's the hard one. And when it comes to game leaks himself, he's never, I don't believe he's ever been right on a video game leak. Now, if this was someone like Nate the Hate or Bill Ken, I think that's how you say his name, people would look at it and go, oh, so The Last of Us Part 3 is happening. But Daniel RPK, it's a hard one because he's not too credible. He's fucked up a lot. He's not been too correct many a times, but he has leaked some stuff that have been correct, and he hasn't stolen them off of someone else who's leaked it before him. So he's pretty much said, he's pretty much said this. So already in advanced production, cast actors / filmed some scenes, which is weird because usually when they get to the casting and film scenes part, that's usually when we start hearing things like more leaks than what we usually would, not unless they're really keeping it on the low. So if they've got cast and filmed some scenes, that stuff would have leaked. I'm very confident in it, like really confident that someone would have slipped. There would have been some sort of someone would have come out and accidentally said something because, you know, yeah, like if it was in concept art phase, I could see how it hadn't been leaked yet, or, you know, yeah, if it was in concept art phase, but cast actors, at that point, that's when leaks really start to ramp up, you know what I mean? And nothing. So I don't see the credibility in this one. I think it's kind of bullshit. But already in advanced production, usually when a game hits that point where they're starting to cast people and film stuff, that's when it starts to get leaked. That's when things get leaked. Even Intergalactic was even partially getting leaked around before the time that it got announced. You know, they were 3 years ago when they started casting and acting and they started doing all that stuff for Intergalactic, there were people coming out going, yeah, Naughty Dog's working on a space game. You know what I mean? Meaning, if they're casting and acting and they're casting people and filming scenes, it would have been very likely that people would have come out and went, yeah, Naughty Dog's working on a post-apocalyptic game. And most people would have been like, oh, it's The Last of Us Part 3. So, yeah, that's the thing I'm trying to say is if they were casting and filming scenes, it would have been leaked. And people would have been talking about, oh, Naughty Dog's working on, you know, a post-apocalyptic game, and people would have went, oh, Last of Part 3. So this is a leak. I think it's not true at all, but I still wanted to add it because why not? Now we're going to go into what I think is happening with The Last of Us, and it's not a continuation of Ellie's story, and it's not a Last of Us Part 3 technically. I think it's a spin-off game. Naughty Dog's been proven in the past. They have done spin-off games. They did The Lost Legacy, which was okay. For me, it was the only Uncharted game I ever played. I'm not a big Uncharted guy. Never played any other games besides Lost Legacy. Really didn't like the story, and I just never played an Uncharted game after that. I know. Don't go there. I know some people go in the comments and be like, you haven't played fucking Uncharted and you're talking about Naughty Dog? Yeah, no, I haven't. But I've 100% of The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, so that's something at least, okay? I really want to make this a little shorter because I'm yapping a little too long. It's been already 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. What I think is happening is they're probably looking for people to do a spin-off. I think that's what's happening. I think they're over there. I think they've gotten a story that's been pitched that's really good, that's not a continuation of Ellie's story. And I think they're going to because The Last of Us world isn't like Uncharted. Uncharted, you can't have a spin-off of Uncharted with whole new characters, just entirely new characters we've never met before. You can't do that with Uncharted. That's nigh impossible. You can't do an Uncharted spin-off with people and characters we'd have no clue who the fuck they are. Completely new and original characters. You can't do that. The game doesn't work like that from what I've seen. Because again, I haven't played Uncharted, so it's, but my brother's ranted about it many times because he's played all the games. So it's not that type of franchise. But The Last of Us is different. The Last of Us could work in a spin-off type game. You could have a story which was in The Last of Us world that wasn't set around any of the characters we know now. We could have a story that's set around whole new characters, new people, new everything. It could be set in a whole new country. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're going to see from The Last of Us in the future. I think we will see more Last of Us, but it's not going to be in the form people think. I think it's going to be in the form of a spin-off. I think it's going to be in the form of new characters, new people, new everything. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing from The Last of Us in the next couple of years. So I think they are in concept art phase of The Last of Us Part 3, or a spin-off game, not The Last of Us Part 3. I don't think it's going to be called The Last of Us Part 3. I think it's going to be called The Last of Us something else. I don't know. Yeah, but I think that's what they're working on. I think they're working on spin-off. I think they are reviewing ideas. I think they're reviewing people coming in with ideas, and those people coming in with ideas for spin-offs. I think they're only looking for people who have ideas for spin-offs, because a spin-off is less risky. You know what I mean? If they fuck up the characters or they fuck up something and the story isn't a masterpiece monolith, people aren't going to care as much because it's a spin-off. They don't really care about the characters as much because there's less risk involved with ruining the characters. There's less risk involved with ruining a character like Ellie. They already kind of did it with The Last of Us Part 2, in my opinion, but whatever. There's less risk in ruining that character. You know what I mean? And then if they release a spin-off and it's good, it's okay, and the story's good, and the characters are good, and it's okay, then you know what happens then? That can spawn a sequel to that spin-off. But then if that spin-off was kind of bad and not great, which it's PlayStation, they've got a really high standard, so I'd suspect it would be, but that's a whole different story for a different time. And if the story just wasn't great and it wasn't a good spin-off, you know what happens? It doesn't really tarnish The Last of Us name. It's the spin-off didn't do well, but that doesn't reflect on the actual game itself, on the franchise itself. And ultimately, it's not ruining the already existing characters in that world. And I think that's why what they're looking for is a spin-off which has completely new characters set in a completely new place with no connection to any of the other characters. I think that's what they're looking for. So if that spin-off doesn't do well or doesn't meet the expectations of fans, they can at least go, well, it didn't ruin the characters you already know. It doesn't ruin any of the existing characters. So that's what I think's happening. I don't really have to go too much more deep into it because this is getting way too long. It's almost 15 minutes. I don't like making long videos because people don't like to watch that shit. No one wants to watch a 15-minute video about a grown man ranting about a franchise. No one wants to do that. You do it with Marvel, but okay, shut up, Easton. What you need to know is I think that's what they're doing. I think they're working on more Last of Us, but it is in the form of a spin-off. And I believe that spin-off will practically not have any already existing characters. I think they want to expand the universe and do it in a way where they can expand it without having to rely on the characters that already exist. They want more Last of Us, but they don't want to put the risk in and, make a game that could be just really bad with the existing characters. So I think their plan is to just go for it and make a spin-off. Hey, it's editing me. I thought I wasn't really too confident with the ending or the outro, so I decided I wanted to re-record it. But yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. I believe that we will be seeing a spin-off, but I don't believe we're going to be seeing a mainline game anytime soon or a direct third one. I just don't think that's likely. I don't think they want to do that. And there's also another thing I really wanted to add that I mentioned earlier in the video, which is Uncharted, where I say that it's physically impossible to do an technically an Uncharted spin-off game with entirely new characters. It's not impossible, but for me and my perspective, The Last of Us is more centered around the world, and Uncharted's more centered around the characters. So Uncharted's world is literally just Earth. It's our world right now. Uncharted's story is about the characters, like Nathan Drake. When Last of Us is less about the characters and more about the world itself, in my opinion. Obviously, the characters are still one of the number one things about it, but the world is unique. The world is different. You know, it's like Game of Thrones, where it's like, yes, it's around the characters, but ultimately it's more about the world than the characters. But that's mainly how I feel about that. There's also grounds for a prequel. I think a prequel could be very likely too. I could see a prequel happening, but maybe that's just me. I want to know, do you have any ideas for The Last of Us Part 3 or a Last of Us spin-off or a Last of Us prequel? And another thing you got to remember, there was a 20-year time gap between the first game and the beginning of the first game. So 20-year time gap, you can do anything with that. So anyways, I want to know, do you have any ideas for The Last of Us Part 3 or a spin-off or a prequel? I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was a little bit rambly and it wasn't too great, but I'm working on making videos greater. I'm getting better at this each and every day with a new video. Hope you enjoyed. Stick along for the journey. Maybe sub. I don't know. I can't quit begging. All good. Bye.